and welcome to the David67 Celtic News YouTube channel. Today's video going to be a preview of tonight's match against Feyenoord at Celtic Park, our last Champions League game of this season, and sadly we're out of Europe and so no European football after Christmas, which I suppose allows us to concentrate on winning the league again and winning the Scottish Cup. And of course, winning the league will get us back into the revised version of the Champions League next season. And I think winning the league is probably what we should be concentrating on for the next few months. And personally, I think winning the league is always the first priority and is a realistic goal for Celtic. I think success in Europe, is more, as Rodgers said when he re-signed for Celtic in the summer, is more of a 3-year plan. And I think doing well in Europe this season was a bit of a pipe dream. And I think we Celtic fans and a lot of journalists and pundits underestimated how good Feyenoord, Lazio were. And obviously, Atletico Madrid have proven how good they are. So, some of you may have watched my little YouTube short released late last night, predicting the team that I would go with. My team for tonight would be Joe Hart in goal, Alonso Johnston at right back. Personally, I would go for Gustav Lagerbielke in place of Nat Phillips, given that CCV has been confirmed that he is out. It does seem a little bit odd that CCV is fully in training when he went off at half-time against Hibs last Wednesday. Rodgers said, there's nothing wrong with him. It was just precautionary. There's nothing wrong with his hamstrings. It's all completely fine. And then lo and behold, he misses the game against Kilmarnock. Perfectly reasonable, miss the game against Kilmarnock. Playing on plastic pitches is very dodgy if you've got hamstring or knee problems. And given the fact that Carter Vickers has both, entirely fine to leave him out against Kilmarnock as a precaution. However, if there was nothing wrong with his hamstring last Wednesday coming off at half-time and he's fully training, I can't see why CCV isn't playing. One can argue that the game against Hearts and the games up to Christmas and past Christmas leading into the Rangers match at the end of the year are jolly important. And so that can be the only rationale. However, I think unfortunately that confines us to yet again seeing Nat Phillips in the heart of our defence. His performance against Kilmarnock was rubbish. His performance in the second half against Hibs was rubbish. The only time I've actually felt that Nat Phillips has performed well is when he has been part of a central three in a back five. And I do think he is actually a bit of a liability, and he was largely to fault for both the goals against Kilmarnock. And I fear the same will happen tonight, as there's a strong chance that Feyenoord will be back at fully strength with Jimenez up front for them. And I don't have actually much faith in Phillips keeping control of him. Beside Lagerbielke in my team and what will be Phillips in Brendan Rodgers' team would be Liam Scales. I don't think Liam Scales is nearly as good a player in a defence unless he's got CCV, Lagerbielke beside him. Lagerbielke and Scales actually formed a really good partnership with 5 clean sheets when they were playing together during CCV's first injury spell of 6 weeks out, leading into the unfortunate loan of Nat Phillips from Liverpool, which I think has been a bit of a disaster. At left back, I have gone for Greg Taylor. Quite a few people suggesting bringing in Anthony Ralston and playing him out of position on the left side of left fullback area. I think Ralston is dodgy enough playing at right back, never mind swapping him to left back, playing with his wrong foot. And defending isn't Ralston's strongest suit either. Personally, I've been very disappointed in Greg Taylor's drop in form this season. From other sources, Taylor apparently is a very important player in the dressing room, a player who keeps up team morale and team spirit, apparently. And I think partly Celtic's loss in team spirit, cohesion, and fighting spirit seems partly due to Callum McGregor seeming a wee bit under par and not so vocal and active within the team on the pitch, and also players such as Greg Taylor, Joe Hart, who are said to be very important within the dressing room, not really coming forward this season, and both appear to be out of form. Don't know whether it's the change of management style and being rubbed up the wrong way by Brendan Rodgers. Don't know whether it's Taylor being asked to play a different version of left back that he isn't so confident playing or so used to playing. I don't know, but Greg Taylor for me has been a big disappointment this season. In midfield, I would go for Tomoki Iwata in the deeper, more defensive role, but fear that Callum McGregor will be dropped back into that role by Rodgers. I can easily see Rodgers having then ahead of that Matt O'Reilly, who of course is a first choice pick at all times, and beside him David Turnbull. The problem of playing Turnbull is that may well get us the odd long shot or nice delivery at a corner or free kick, etc. But it does mean that O'Reilly is having to do all the humdrum work in midfield to cover for the fact that Turnbull doesn't have the engine or the energy to get up and down the pitch and do the nitty-gritty and hard work in midfield. Other people have been suggesting Paulo Bernardo, in that Bernardo has actually started the last couple of in the European matches in preference to the other midfielders. And personally, I think Bernardo's done a perfectly good job in the games that he's played, but I think Turnbull is likely to start, even though he still seems to be holding out on any new contracts and seems determined to get away from the club either in the January window or the following summer transfer window. I've gone for James Forrest on the right just because I don't think, with Vata and Maeda both being out currently, we have any real other options. I think James Forrest, just with that bit more of experience and a bit more of an ability to get up and down the wing and cover back to help midfield and defence, is a better option. And I think 60 good minutes of James Forrest is better than Yang, who is low in confidence, or Mikey Johnson, who is a very mercurial, in and out player. Sometimes the odd bit of good play, but as was the case against Hibs and in the last 7 years of his professional career at Celtic, he rarely strings two halves of good football together, never mind 2 or 3 games of good football together for Celtic. I personally would be very happy to see him leave in the January window, and is important, I think, to remember that Mikey Johnson has been at the club for many, many years. He's had so many chances, never really delivered on a consistent basis, as opposed to players like Yang and Tilio, several years younger, having to learn a different set of culture. For Yang, obviously, having to learn completely new language. And so for me, it's much more understandable that Yang and Tilio may be struggling to get into the team and stay in the team, but a player like Johnston, I think, has had more than enough chances, and so I think we should ditch him as quick as possible. And move on with Abada, Maeda, Palma in the wide positions, with Yang and Tilio as backup players, along with Forrest coming off the bench as and when required, and being available to rest the inverted commas star players when needed. Luis Palma, of course, is an automatic starter on the other side, and I think for Celtic to win tonight against Feyenoord, we need a good performance from Luis Palma for the whole 90 minutes. We need him up and down the wing, cutting in to the box, being there as a more inside forward role in the Scott Sinclair model of Rodgers' first time at Celtic, or the role that Laila Bada performed so well under Ange Postecoglou for 2 years. Also, we need Palma's good delivery at free kicks and corners, and potentially at penalty kicks if we're lucky enough for VAR to give us a penalty, and for VAR not to overturn it, as it did the last time against Lazio in Rome. I personally went for Kyogo up front, but thought that Rodgers was then going to go for Oh instead, but he did mention at the press conference that he's intending to start Kyogo. Very oddly for me, he said it's not his fault that Kyogo's playing so deep, and it's Kyogo's done that himself, trying to get himself back on the ball. However, this seems completely contrary to what Rodgers said at the very start of the season, where he had said he wanted Kyogo coming deeper, dropping into an attacking midfield role to create space for O'Reilly and Turnbull and the wide players to break into. I don't know whether this is simply Rodgers changing his story, whether that was the initial tactic and they changed it, but Kyogo has been disobeying orders. For me, it seems probable that Kyogo was told, you play this role, and he's been told to keep on playing that role, because particularly in the second half against Kilmarnock, both O and Kyogo were dropping deeper and deeper, which for me seems to be Rodgers' tactics rather than those two players misunderstanding or disobeying the rules. Rodgers also said in his press conference yesterday that he was taking the blame for the loss against Kilmarnock, and then listed 4 or 5 reasons why it wasn't his fault. I don't know how many of you are big Rodgers fans, how many of you dislike Rodgers. I'm kind of ambivalent about Rodgers. Thought he did a great job the first time around. Left us very much in the lurch to go off to Leicester. Has come back to Celtic, which I always think is never a good idea. Coming back to a club, either as a player or as a manager, as it very rarely ever works out. Celtic's made the same mistake before with Billy McNeill, came back a second time as manager. More recently, of course, Neil Lennon came back as manager. Both times McNeill, Lennon with some success, but in many ways the spirit and cohesion and organisation of the team wasn't the same second time around as it was the first. And I get the feeling that it's similar now with Rodgers having come back. As I said at the start of this video, I don't think Celtic's spirit, cohesion, fight, never say die attitude that was so great under Ange Postecoglou is ongoing in the current team. One of the hallmarks I thought of Postecoglou's team was playing from whistle to whistle, and at the end of the 90 plus minutes, having as much energy and attack and forward thinking as they had at the start of the game. And the Rodgers, we seem to be in and out with our energy and fight. And as was the case against Lazio, both times around, we threw away a good chance of a point or even 3 points in both games, with lapses in concentration and play at both games, in Celtic Park and in Rome. And of course, there was the rather confusing substitution where Rodgers threw on Carter Vickers, only just back from injury without any real time playing before he was thrown in against Lazio. And of course, it was Carter Vickers looking a bit slow and stiff and out of practice, who made a vital error against Lazio, which led directly to their goal. Very hopeful, however, that Celtic will come out fighting tonight. I do hope that O'Reilly and McGregor both step up, that Luis Palma has a good game and Kyogo gets back to his scoring form, as I think the more that we can attack and be on the front foot against Feyenoord, the less of a threat they're going to be, which then allows our right back and left back and centre backs to push forward, maybe allows McGregor to play a bit further forward, assuming that Tomoki Iwata doesn't get a start. And I think if we get 60-odd thousand Celtic supporters screaming and shouting and singing supportive songs and inspirational songs, I think we have every chance of getting 3 points tonight and ending the campaign with a positive. Couple other wee update type things. The Rocco Vata saga, much the same as David Turnbull saga, seems ongoing. There's some contrary reports as to whether Celtic are stalling things. It seems more likely that Rocco Vata's agents are actively negotiating early with several European clubs. Just recently, Juventus and Monaco have both expressed an interest to sign Rocco Vata, and it would appear that Celtic would be eligible for around £340,000 in compensation. I think Rocco Vata is worth so much more than that to the club. He's been in very good goal-scoring form for the under-18 team in the European League and the Lowland League, and has, of course, played well for the younger under-21 side, under-19 side for Republic of Ireland in this last season as well. Also, of course, Rocco Vata would qualify as being Scottish and Scottish trained for the UEFA quotas, which are so important, especially if we lose David Turnbull and if we get rid of Mikey Johnston. I think Celtic next season could be in a bit of a lurch unless we do look to sign a Scottish player or two or bring through some of our talented young under-18 players like Mackenzie Carse, Ben Quinn and Mitchell Frame as examples. Other piece of news is that Celtic seem to be in early negotiation with Sidney van Hooijdonk's agents, although have not yet made a formal offer or approach to Bologna. Van Hooijdonk has had very occasional substitute appearances this year for Bologna with one goal, and has said in a couple of interviews he's very keen to move forward his career, and it does look like he's looking at leaving Bologna to further his career. One interesting option, which kind of echoes something that Rodgers said a couple of press conferences ago, is I wonder whether Celtic might be able to loan Sidney van Hooijdonk to the end of the season with a view to buying him in the summer. The other player I wondered whether Celtic might look to see if there's a possibility of loaning might be Giakoumakis, who had such a brilliant season for Atlanta in the Major League Soccer. Their season is finished, and as has happened a few times, American players have come across on loan to keep their fitness up in between two seasons of MLS football. I have not seen any kind of news or gossip or rumours regarding Giakoumakis coming back to us on loan for a few months, but it would be a great move for Celtic, as he was a very good player for Celtic in his year and a half or so. And in many ways, Sidney van Hooijdonk is a bit of a copy of Giakoumakis in terms of his style and way of playing football, and being a bit more of a target man with a bit more power and aggression and bulk and threat in the air compared to Kyogo or Oh. Just about finishes things off for today. I am very grateful for the few people who have added themselves on as subscribers. I'm very grateful for all those who view the channel on a regular basis, and very grateful for all the subscribers as well. And I have been very much delighted over the last couple of weeks where so many of the viewers and subscribers have been adding comments and questions and queries and things to talk about in the comment section of the various different parts of this channel. And really do enjoy debating and discussing matters with other Celtic fans, and also with other football fans as well. And do feel free to pop comments into this section, comment section, or other places on the channel. And if there are any people watching today's video who've enjoyed the topic or the presentation, or talking about Celtic, please do consider clicking the subscribe button, and if you are a subscriber, passing on the details of the good points of this channel to other friends, family, Celtic supporters and football supporters. So to finish off, thanks for your participation and viewing today. Goodbye. Good luck, Celtic, in your game against Feyenoord, and hail, hail.
Yeah.